Canada's inflation report came out with the news that no change. Now, there's obviously some change because they look at a lot of different things. There's different versions of it, headline, trim, media. I mean, there's a million pieces of data inside this report. But at the end of the day, the only thing that would be bad news to anyone is that the price of food is not declining at the same rate as some other items in that report, which is always bad news. Look, there's a lot of people in Canada who are just getting by, and food is the toughest thing. Food and rent's toughest thing. Food and mortgage payment, toughest thing for people with ordinary incomes. And let's face facts, those prices are not coming down. Rents are actually coming down, believe it or not, new rents. But you got to on average, rents just have gone up significantly in previous years, and most people are still in the lease or in the rental situation they were in before. And those were big increases over the last 5 years. Certainly food is up nearly, I think, 26% over the last 4 years. And for people on fixed incomes or average income earners, is very, very hard. So when I say inflation appears to be under control, there's a whole bunch of people in Canada who say, fuck no. I mean, I'm in bad shape. And they're telling the truth. That's factual. It's difficult for many families these days. But for as it applies to mortgages, it applies to rates, it applies to interest rates, this is basically good news because it's further evidence to the Bank of Canada that inflation is under control and once again sets the stage for another rate cut on January 29th. As I've said endlessly for months now, the future of prime rate in Canada is lower. The Bank of Canada will continue to cut. Commercial banks will match those cuts, and rates come down for variable rates. Fixed, not so much. Although some fixed rates, like if you're buying a house with a big mortgage, I would tell you some fixed rates right now are pretty competitive on 5-year fixed. We continue to see a few 3.99s. We do, but more like mid to low 4% range for fixed rates. Variable rates already at 4.5 or less. So what do we expect? We expect at least another 25 basis point cut. Who knows about the 50? I'm not going to lay claim to that, but definitely another cut, and there'll be another cut after that. So the future, as always, is for variable rates because as inflation appears to be beaten, the economy continues to worsen. Unemployment will continue to rise. Individual GDP, per capita GDP, will continue to deteriorate, particularly in Ontario, which is probably the hardest hit. And that's just in the cards. And that's why the Bank of Canada will keep cutting. Trump, what's the story? The next meeting, the next announcement date, I should say, for the Bank of Canada is January 29th. The new president will be, the old becoming new president, Donald Trump, will be inaugurated on the 20th of January. Will the tariffs start right away? Will all hell break loose for the Canadian economy? Probably something will happen. Who knows exactly what will happen, but probably something will happen. And although tariffs are a terrible mistake, and they're also terrible for Canada, they're also terrible for Americans because they just raise prices in America. But it's particularly bad for Ontario, where is the heart of manufacturing in Canada, and that's going to be bad. It's going to make things worse. It's going to increase unemployment. So once again, more fuel to the fire of lower variable rates. So, but wait, everybody says the same thing. Stop. The currency is going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, it's falling like a rock. We're down to 69.9, maybe less, going lower and lower per US dollar. It's a disaster. And that'll import inflation, and then all hell will break loose again. Okay, sure. There may be some inflation, but there also may be falling prices in some other areas and falling service costs. And it's not just one thing in the basket. It's food will probably go up because we import a lot of food from the US, and that's a different dollar now, but other things may come down. So it's unknown as to whether this falling dollar, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if the dollar went to 66 or 65 cents. It wouldn't shock the hell out of me. And that's bad for all of us, but it's good for rates. It's because it is more deterioration of the Canadian economy. I know, bad news, but particularly more deterioration of the Ontario economy. But we will eventually, and maybe sooner than later, get to a 2.5 rate in Canada, down from 5% at the Bank of Canada, and that will result in lower lines of credit payments, lower mortgage payments on variable rate mortgages, and a bit of good news for what's otherwise a bad news story throughout Canada in terms of just a general decline in the economy. Hang in there, but it is probably going to get worse.